onset, I would like to thank you for joining us today and helping us, spread the message of how a 20% worth working capital can be unlocked in your existing system by digitizing and simply organizing your supply chain. I will start with a short introduction of who we are at Moglix, and then we will talk at length about what we really mean by unlocking 20% of your working capital by digitizing and organizing supply chain. So Moglix is a 2.5-year old startup, and what we do, so if you see what our vision is, our vision has from the beginning been reimagining B2B commerce and supply chain with technology. We are an Asia-based e-commerce company, and we specialize in B2B procurement, especially in the MRO category, which is your indirect procurement, or the category C, as some of you in the hardcore manufacturing language might call it. We extend our expertise not just to procurement of these goods as an e-commerce engine, but also to solving the supply chain problems through technology, whether it's today it's about being GST compliant or about digitization of the whole supply chain process. We are 200 plus strong team, and we are headquartered in Singapore. Through India, we are based out of Noida, Gurgaon, Chennai, Pune, Mumbai, and Ahmedabad. We are also opening a fulfillment center in Udaipur as we speak. Talking about who we are at Moglix, Moglix is a team of 11 very upbeat and enthusiastic leaders from good pedigree of IIT, IIM, ISB, MBI, etc. And we have put together about 75 plus years of strong experience, which is a very interesting melange of technology and manufacturing expertise. So we have people from Google, Tata, Meritor, Olam, Snapdeal. So you will see a very interesting confluence of procurement and commerce on one side and technology on the other side. Our founder Rahul Garg is ex-Googler and from IIT Kanpur and ISB gold medalist. He has 16 patents to his name. So that's just summarizing the credential of who we are as a team. Quickly moving on to who our investors and advisors are. We are a Ratan Tata funded company, and we have people like Neeraj Arora, Jeff Epstein, Ravi Kichlu, Salesh Rao, and Vikram Singhania on our advisory, and they are also angel investors. We've been funded by Axel and Jungle and World Bank IFC. We have a very strong partnership with GSTN to understand. So because we also have our GST product, because it's very important as a part of the supply chain initiatives that we do, that the every step of supply chain needs to be GST compliant. We are also a part of SAP Startup Studio, and that's how our journey in terms of partnership with SAP started, and that is exactly how we started putting all our products in HCP. We will talk a little bit more about it as we proceed in the webinar. So if I were to look at the kind of problems that we are trying to solve today for manufacturing, I would say the thing that comes to forefront is number one, fragmented suppliers and brands, and the data that you see here really is a summary of what we have concluded being in the market, having 200 plus enterprise customers who we are catering to. So I will just talk about briefly what we have concluded from working with all these people. So the fragmented supplier and brand. So what happens is that there is a, there is an 80-20 rule in procurement, which of course all of you will agree, wherein only 20% of your spend goes into procurement of your maintenance, repair, operations or category C goods, but you have 80% of your vendors who are serving. So what that essentially translates is that you have a long tail of vendors who are catering to a low value product, but the amount of chasing, amount of procurement process hassle, and Of course, now the GST compliance is very high, and because of the fragmented brand and the poor quality of data, where we are actually claiming that 90% of data is poor, it's very difficult to analyze the spend. It's very difficult to understand whether there is duplication in procurement, what you're procuring is genuine or no. For example, somebody might, in the procurement team, for example, somebody might say that, they want a bearing, but there is no description beyond that, whether it's an SKF bearing, whether it's a bearing with a certain specs, or if it's a cutting tool, what kind of cutting tool is it? And the main reason for that is that while we talk of AI and blockchain, unfortunately, the fact material language or description that is used for tracking data. So that is another thing that we are trying to solve for. It unlocks a lot of value, not just in terms of spend analytics, but also in terms of bringing intelligence to how and what you're procuring, and understanding, where you can optimize. Inventory, not optimized, of course, this is one problem that is faced across any manufacturing house that has multiple plants. So what happens is that, when you have multiple plants and when the procurement is not central for these plants, often people order things in bulk which are underutilized, and they lie about. Not just that, there are duplicate orders because people are not talking to each other. There is no system to reconcile what has been ordered. Of course, there is a central reconciliation point in the ERP, but factory wise, there is no vendor portal, or there is no central vendor that you are procuring from who can give you a clean data. So that we have noticed accounts for 30% of wastage. Alternate product, as we call it, of course, it has two facets to it. One thing that we have mentioned here is 10% of higher price, but we're also talking about pilferage here. Small things like a rim of paper for office supply could consistently have 20 paper less in each packet, and you will never get to know about it. And this is just a small example, but it could be nuts, bolts, and other MRO products also that are there. And of course, now GST compliance becomes a thing, because how many vendors will you chase for GSTR 1 and 2? Because ultimately, in the world of sequential liability, unless you get that value, you will be losing out on 18% to 28% of your MRO procurement or the indirect procurement category. So one is this, and you will ask me, where does automation, digitization fit into all of this, and where does commerce fit into all of this? So my next slide talks about the three things that we are trying to do in this space that we believe will be bringing in a lot of value. So one thing is, of course, the Moglix marketplace, which is moglix.com. Moglix.com is like any other commerce portal, except the difference being the workflow and functionality in Moglix.com has been designed to be used not just by a B2C typical customer, but also a B2B buyer or the procurement officer in a manufacturing setup. It's an online self-serve platform for SME buying, and the workflow is integrated. The second thing is Moglix MRO Buyer Terminal, wherein we have a SaaS product called buyers.moglix.com. We integrate it with your ERP, and in most cases it is SAP ERP. This platform allows you to store your product master. It helps you in vendor consolidation. It helps you in pricing synchronization. And of course, it enables real-time tracking of your product in the non-BOM category. Then we have Moglix Vendor Platform, which is the supplier portal. It takes care of right from the time a PO is generated to the time a payment is made, all the reconciliations, collaborations, payment status that you get to see, and GRN status that you get to see, or for that matter, any communication that you might want to have with your vendor without any manual intervention. Because hey, you're not talking about just 3 or 4 vendors, but most large manufacturing houses in this scenario has more than 2,000, 3,000 vendors. So this is what. So I'm going to, at the end of my presentation, I'm going to do a very small, quick demo of the product, which is Moglix vendor platform or supplier platform. And I'm going to show you how we take care of the entire workflow, right from PO generation to the point where the payment is made. Now, this is just an example of a few, items, and this is just maybe 15 or 16 categories that I'm showing here, but Moglix caters to more than 45 categories of products in the indirect procurement section. And of course, we have more than 3,000, 4,000 vendors with us, and we have more than 2 lakh SKUs and we serve more than 200 customers. So this is something which is already very, very evolved model. And with our technology integration with ERP, this becomes all the more seamless in terms of data analytics that we provide around your procurement. So why would you procure from Moglix? And this is really a snapshot of Moglix for Buyers portal, which gives you a dashboard of spend analytics. And although today I'm not going to do a detailed demo of this one, but maybe in next session I will. However, I am going to talk to you about what do we bring to the table. So the typical Moglix promise is one, we will beat or meet the prices that you have been paying, and of course these prices start to yield even 3 to 5% of saving beyond 6 months of procurement. We guarantee the genuinity of the product, we guarantee the lead time, and of course we guarantee GST compliance. How do we guarantee GST compliance? Well, instead of procuring from 1,000 vendors, if in your setup you are just procuring from Moglix, you have just one invoice or one vendor to worry about, and we take care of that. What it does is it brings you 3 verticals of success. It's reduced management cost, reduced purchase cost, reduced non-compliance, like I spoke about. Reduced effort on non-strategic procurement. Again, the 80-20 rule about MRO procurement applies here. Avoid issues like data supply chain follow-ups, and world over the best-in-class companies rely on partners like Granger in the West, which is very much parallel to what we do here as a one-stop shop for taking care of all of this. These are a few examples of customers who we have. This is a mix of our technology customers and our commerce customers. A very interesting thing about Moglix and what we do is, when we call ourselves the house of supply chain experts, we do that and we take pride in that because we are probably the only one in the country who is at a beautiful confluence of commerce on one side, which is last mile fulfillment for MRO category of products, and technology on the other for digitization of supply chain, which makes the supply chain and procurement very, very seamless for anyone. And these are the brands and categories, few of the brands and categories that we work with. In these categories, of course, in some places we have we work with the companies directly, and in some cases we have where the distribution is very, very localized and remote, we work with distributors as well. But of course the brand promise in terms of lead time and price and genuinity of the product remains the same. Well, this is a testimonial from Mr. Atul Jain, who is head of procurement with Lumax, that is a close to $1 billion auto component company. We were able to serve almost 23 plants within 1 year, and we have personally grown 40x, we've been able to multiply our customers and the number of plant serves, the number of category serves within last 2 years. Now, talking about the vendor platform, which is something that I'm going to give a small demonstration for as well, the app. The process of procurement, like I said, while we talk about AI and blockchain and machine learning, we are as a country far behind when it comes to actually digitizing the supply chain at the root. And the reason for it is that each company has its own rules and its own processes that they follow in terms of who will be receiving the goods, who will be doing procurement, and at what end the data will be entering to the ERP, which is SAP, and how the reconciliation will happen. What happens in this case is that from PO to GRN and from GRN to payment, there is a huge gap or latency in terms of number of days. This latency can be improved minimum by 25% and maximum by 50-60% by deployment of a vendor portal. What vendor portal essentially does is it gives your vendor an interface wherein they can real time enter their invoices, they can receive the PO to begin with, they can accept the PO, and they can upload invoices, they can create ASN, so that there is a constant three-way matching happening before they actually ship the good to you. And once they ship goods to you, then the person who's receiving or the goods at the gate entry person can match it against ASN, create a GRN, and then as the payment gets processed, or if there is a debit note or a credit note, the vendor can be notified. In any scenario, when it comes to supply chain, there is flow of information, there is flow of physical goods, and there's a flow of tax. Our vendor portal sort of takes care of all these flow and information captured around all this flow. Recently, we have also built started to build a report which fetches information from SAP, wherein people are using SAP ASP to show the vendor whether the invoice that they have submitted is reconciled and GST compliant or not. All these features kind of make vendor portal really important, and it does bring in a lot of automation and removes manual intervention, because no more people have to call up and ask whether the PO has been accepted, whether the goods are on the way, whether the ASN has been created. And more than that, it's also kind of important to know which stage of delivery or what latency at what stage of procurement is being faced. That should be immediately highlighted through the reports. So like I spoke about, the typical challenges that we face in absence of a vendor portal is manual procurement, pay interaction with vendor, overhead of communication, reduced SLA compliance, excess inventory, buyers, vendors' grievances on GRN and payment transparency. So a lot of time is lost in that. So this is a case study. We had recently deployed our portal on Minda Connect, again, one of the top auto component companies, and the challenge there was that they needed a just-in-time delivery. Their target operational efficiency was 25%, and they wanted to be GST compliant. They also wanted to eliminate all the latency in the communication with vendors so that the GRN can happen on time and the books can be maintained in a clean way. The solution was, of course, Minda Connect, a white labeled vendor portal solution that we provided for them, which was a complete digitization of supply chain. And again, this is a SAP Cloud Platform certified solution. So we will be talking about it in detail. The impact was, of course, improved operational efficiency, inventory reduction, 100% compliance, and reduced conflict and mismatch. Now, while I am at the topic of vendor portal and app, I would briefly like to tell you why did we decide to go on SAP Cloud Platform and why did we deploy our app on SAP Cloud Platform. SAP Cloud Platform is not just platform as a service, but it also actually facilitates to extend, integrate, and build your business app on the cloud platform. So all the flexibility around it is that if you have an SAP ECC, you can quickly add new functionality to your existing on-prem or cloud app. You can integrate with another app, which is a third-party app like ours, or you can build a completely new app depending on what your business need is. Which is and this is completely flexible, and the developments that are done on Fiori, very interestingly, it also offers you a quick deployment on the mobile app platform without much development effort. So this is a ecosystem that SAP is trying to build around its HANA platform. The various things that you can do using, like I said, Fiori, user experience, role-based user experience for all devices, and the various things that you can do is create mobile app with consumer-grade UX. And this is very important, because ultimately, if you see, a lot of technology deployments fail because of lack of adoption. Here, the people in question are your last mile vendors. So if they are to adopt something, it has to be as good as your Facebook or an Ola or an Uber interface, which they are actually used to using and which are intuitive in nature. So it's not just about solving complexity of a problem, but it's also providing a simple solution and a simple UI which the vendors actually get used to. Now that is another thing that we are able to achieve and at Moglix, and of course the HCP platform and development on Fiori supports that kind of ideology. The inbuilt analytics again helps you. So while we help you clean up your data, they help you with the big data analytics around what exactly you should be doing with your procurement spend. So these are a few benefits of developing a platform on HCP, and of course, user experience analytics, Internet of Things, collaboration and integration is one thing, but also, the ecosystem allows you to be compliant and at the best possible price if you have developed an app which sits on HCP, and this is what we have experienced that can bring very, very optimal results for our customers who are already using SAP.